right, so thank you all for coming today. My name is Dāniels,
And my name is Laura.
and we are going to present you on how to get people excited about your climate campaigns. Is anybody here working in marketing or a similar field? Does anybody here do campaigns on daily basis? You do, all right, but the rest of you don't. So I think it's going to be quite a good lesson to all of you, and I do believe it is going to be quite useful for most of you. All right, I'm gonna try out the clicker, and it seems that it should work, but it's not. Ooh. You know, if we started like 30 minutes later, we can still wait a minute or two. Doesn't matter. I don't know. Maybe. I can also go to there. We can maybe go that there, just off from there. It is good. That is what it should be there. But oh, now it's working. All right, sweet. Well, you see the two things there. On the left side, that's me. On the right side, that's Laura. I'm gonna talk about this guy a little bit. Who is he? Who am I? Why can I talk about climate campaigns? Why can I talk about campaigns at all? So right now I'm only 21. However, I started my first campaigns in marketing from age 13. I built my first business. It was quite similar to Tinder. Does anybody know here what is Tinder? Hopefully do. All right, so what it is, I built a business on where I put together people who play video games. I built that up to 250,000 people and was quite successful. And from years on, I started to work in marketing agencies. I help large brands like LG, McDonald's, Audi, and many other large international companies with marketing strategies in Latvia. And that's my experience in marketing. And I will share more on what I have done in the next slides. But Laura, who are you?
Okay, so I'm Laura and I'm 25 and I'm studying graphic design and I'm working in an advertising agency. But one day I understand that my passion for nature is more bigger than than advertising. So I turn my skills in advertising to my skills to helping the nature. So I'm creating the graphics for the nature, like illustrations and some posters, and helping NGO team people. Yeah.
All right, sweet. Well, let's get to the main parts. Oh, no, don't close your eyes. This is the right one. Sweet. All right, so before every single campaign, before every single activity, whenever you're planning something, it's always really crucial to map out the basics, to map out the fundamentals of what you are going to do. And in campaigns, it's especially important because not only you're going to lead the team, but you're also expressing the idea that you're trying to solve to hundreds, if not millions of people. So if you don't know what is the problem you're trying to solve, nobody else is going to really understand it. So the first thing before you even start to think about campaigns and how to attract people, you firstly need to understand what's the problem you're trying to solve. And when you think about the problem you're trying to solve, it needs to be quite specific. It cannot be, I have an example which I wrote down. You cannot say, for example, I want to fix climate change because it's going to end the world. Well, it's not really specific. You need to have some numbers in it. You need to have some more specific things there that you can easily relate to other people. And second is, well, you need to understand what's your end goal. is your end goal to have a specific law passed or have a specific solution? For example, you need to perhaps reduce CO2 emissions by 50%. You need to have some sort of a solution that you're going to ask people to achieve together with you. And the third is, what's your target audience for climate changes? It's typically lawmakers or specific age group. And but in climate campaigns, it's always really crucial to think about it. If your target group is policymakers, is it really the policymakers? Because policymakers always follow the public, and you need to first educate the public, and then the policymakers will come afterwards. And the fourth is, what type of campaign is it? Is it going to be offline, online, or hybrid? But we're going to touch on that afterwards a little bit more. And before we go further, I really want to have put emphasis on how to create ideas, because on the previous slides we have to answer quite a lot of questions to start even about the campaigns. And when we do that, is we have to ideate, we have to create ideas, we have to write them down. And most of us have been in brainstorming groups. I hope, I believe that most of us have been there. And what happens there is you have a goal. Your goal is to understand perhaps what is your problem. And somebody who's leading that group asks, all right, guys, do you have any idea on what should be the solution or what's the problem? And they say the problem, an example, and you're like, no, sorry, this is not going to work. Any other solution, any other ideas? And that's really going to foster a bad culture where people are not going to share their ideas. So when you're starting to do brainstorms, always remember, when you're doing brainstorms, firstly, write down all of the ideas. If somebody is saying something, write that down, say thank you, any other ideas, and keep just writing down ideas. And then when all of the ideas have been written down, only then make choices. And that's going to be a really good ideation technique for campaigns. And other part is, if we understand what's the basics of the campaign, or if we understand what's the problem we're trying to solve or the solution we are trying to achieve, it's really important to also understand how much can we accomplish, what are our resources, and the first thing is the size of the team and their free time. And why that is important, because if you're trying to perhaps make a new law, if you only have one person in your team, obviously you cannot do it in a day. but in most campaigns, it's really crucial to understand simply your team size, how much time do they have, and then you will be easier to tell what are the priorities, how much you can do at the same time, and so on. The second is, how much knowledge do you have in the team? Do you have in the team knowledge about, for example, about campaigns, or how to get people's attention, or about the topic you're going to talk about? Do you have knowledge about, like, for example, climate change and laws, if that's something you want to change? If you don't, you will always need to have some set time on the side for consultations, for conversations with the experts. And third of all is, do you have any budget for the campaign? It's not mandatory, and the budget is always only going to probably just save you some time. That's it. You can also achieve great achievements without marketing budget. And let's take a look at some timelines. We will take a look at 3 different campaigns. One is in 6 months, one is in 1 month, and one is in 1 day. And so if you have 6 months, for example, also if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask, because this is quite broad. So if you have specific questions you can ask, we can answer that, because yeah, we have probably knowledge to do so. So if you have 6 months, the first phase is going to be probably preparing. and then preparing for the launch, then the launch itself, and then campaign iteration is if you launch something, you want to change it over time to improve it. And the reason why you want to have preparation is fundamentally whenever you do something, you have probably felt stressful. You have probably felt that anxiety or something else. And that comes mostly from not knowing something that's going to happen, or just you don't have enough information. So the first 2 months is solving that problem, get the information on how things are going to happen. What's the structure? What's the timeline? What's the problem? What's the solution that we are trying to achieve? The second is find your team, your core team, not the perfect team, because there's no such thing as a perfect team, but find the right people for you. You as a leader need to understand what's the problem, and then just simply go from the problem and go back several steps and try to understand how you can find the solution for that. And then you will find the responsibilities that are needed to do the solution, and then for each responsibility find a person that could do it. And then on from improve preparing, it's really important to spend a lot of time on the materials that you're going to share forward to people, and not only on the where you're going to share the materials or how you're going to get the attention, but focus really on how you're going to inflict different emotions on people. How can you get people to get, for example, angry, happy, sad from your banners? So if you can get several different emotions from a specific people, that's going to benefit you in the long term. And the fourth is create a database of partners who you could work with and who you could do something together with. Then the third month is preparing for launch. And then that's the moment where you want to create the material, the text, because you know what's the problem you're trying to solve. Then you have to also expand your core team. For example, if you at the beginning added 5 people to your team, then now it's the time to add more people, because these people are going to be mostly assistants to you, and then they'll send out preparing pre-campaign information to your partners or potential partners. So whenever you start the campaign, you can go out with a bang. So you are everywhere. But I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. And then is the launch itself. That's the moment where you publish your message loud and clear in several media at the same time. And that's something I will touch on afterwards. But it's also really important when you launch the campaign. It's not to say, oh wow, I did it. I published some Facebook posts. We put out posters, and that's it. No, now it's the time to gather some data, analytics. That should be your main focus when you do something, to gather as much data as possible, because that's going to be the next important step on campaign iteration. Whenever you do something, you will never, in preparation phase, you cannot early prepare on what's the best execution on something specific, because you need data. If you have never done campaigns or specific campaigns on like climate campaigns, you cannot know on how people are going to react to specific messages. So now you need to just look at the data on how many clicks you have, how many impressions, how many people are sharing your posts or talking about it on social media by themselves. So that's the first thing. You need to gather data. After data, it's really important to simply improve your posters, improve your message. But the other thing is experimenting. The more you experiment, the more data you have, the better results you can have for your goal. And it's perhaps quite systematic. Maybe it's not as emotional as it should be, but that's the best way to reach good results. And after the launch has happened, you will find people who believe in the campaign. You'll find people who truly want to help solve the problem you have mentioned before. But And that's the reason why you need to have quite clear problem you're trying to solve. If you don't know what's the problem you're going to solve, whenever you send it out to people in the social media, for example, they will not quite clearly understand it. And if they don't understand it, they cannot get behind it. And you want people to get behind your message. You want people to build communities around it, because that's going to be really, really great long term, because you can easily expand your core team even further. And then it's, of course, accomplish your initial mission, if that's possible. And now that was, if you have 6 months, that's like the basics of a good campaign that you prepare, that there's the launch campaign that then you launch, and then you have the campaign itself. But what do you do when you have 1 month or 1 day? If you have only 1 month, the main difference is when you assemble your team is you don't assemble a team of people you have heard of. Now you focus on mainly on people that you know are good, because the more trust you have in your team, the faster you're going to work together. And that's really, really, and even when you have 1 day, I highly just suggest creating something with your friends, because you need to have that trust in people. Second is craft emotionally impactful message. That's pretty hard for some. In 1 week, that could be challenging, but you could do at least one. And when you do that, as always, whenever you create a banner or a text message, look at each word, each emblem on the banner, and understand, all right, if a person looks at this, what emotion they're going to get out of it. Just focus on emotions and what will they get out of it. And then third one is, the third week is just start doing it. On the right side, this summer, I had the idea to walk across my country, which is Latvia. We did a small campaign for where we walked across Latvia in 18 days, 1,650 kilometers, and we wanted to attract funding for children who are suffering from autism. And the way we did it is we simply started walking. Nobody has really ever walked across Latvia, because that just, why would you do that? And I was asking the same question to myself. But whenever we just started doing the campaign, we were publishing the materials that we are going across Latvia. We are staying at stranger places. We are talking with people on the streets, and then just foster partnerships. We message some local media. We message some national media. We message television, and then it's much easier to actually get people to talk about you when you already have something. And that's what we did. And in the end, we had quite a lot of money donated to this charity. And the fourth is interact with people, be there, create a community. And by that, I mean, whenever you're doing your campaign, especially if it's an emotional one for climate, it's really, really important to look at the people who are interacting with your campaign, try to gather them somehow all together up, create a community, because when you have that community, you're gonna have these constant fans interacting with your materials, with your messages, and that's just gonna grow organically your posters much further than you could do alone. And when you have timeline 1 day, when you have to do something by tomorrow and you only knew it today. So the first thing is, you don't get together with experts or people like who are the best of the field. You get together with people you are friends with, people you trust, and then you create posters. But I think Laura can.
Yeah, I can tell you. I made this poster the last summer when we visited Finland, small city, and they have this issue with the dams. I know everyone knows that what kind of sadness is the dams in the river. So they wanted to buy this Paloki dam so they can remove it, because if they could remove it, it will get like extra 30 hectares of place where salmon can reproduce. So it was really special workshop where we talked and drove and just discussed about the importance of the rivers in general, and then we created posters, and this was mine poster, and then we just collect them all together and put on this letter that we send to the Finnish politician people. So, and then this poster helped, like, it was the material that they sent it over the many Finnish other NGO people, and yeah, that's how you do it. Just in one day, when you have the problem or something that just pops in your mind, and maybe you have the idea, but maybe you can't draw it, and maybe you can just find someone who can draw it for you, and you can create like an icon or emblem or poster, and it could be also the campaign by itself. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So when you got that thing going already, then you go on to the next step is whenever you create campaigns, you want to have identity with it. But when you have 1 day deadline, you will probably not make like a special Instagram, Facebook account. So then I just suggest using your own social media. If you have it, just share it in your own social media and get your friends to share it forward. But just simply, when you have 1 day deadline, you cannot make many strategies. You simply do it, then you see what's going on, what's going wrong, and then you get that data. Just like make some Excel sheet where you have like, I did this was the outcome, and do it again and again and again and again. Simply improve and repeat. And on 1 day deadlines, that's typically the best solution. There's not many strategies you can actually have, especially if it's like something initiative that you want to do simply just because. But now going on a little bit further, before I mentioned that you want to reach a person emotionally from in different states. What do I mean by that? So whenever we are trying to reach a person, for example, if it's about a conference, we want to reach that person at least 5 times, but we don't want to reach that person from 5 times in Instagram, because in average, a person sees around 5,000 to 10,000 ads every single day. And if you are 5 of them, you're not going to get that person's attention. So what you do is you imagine the person you're trying to reach. And I imagine John. John could be a person who wakes up 7, and the first thing he does after that is he looks at his phone. And then I think, all right, so me as a marketing guy, how can I get on his phone? So when he's scrolling on Instagram, how can I be there? And at that moment, he's going to be tired. Next is he wakes up after half an hour. He goes and gets breakfast with his family. And now the next step is, all right, I reach John directly through social media. Now I need to find a new source how to reach him. And now I try to understand how can I reach his family, so his family forwards the information to John. And I do that on every single step. How can I do that with his colleagues? How can I do that with his friends, or with the music he listens to, or with the surrounding area? Because when that happens, is you can never really know from which source the person trusts the most. For some people, it's social media. For some people, it's family. For some, it's friends. For some, it's a mix. So your goal should be to reach every single part of that person's information cycle and try to get that information in him somehow. And how do you get information there? You can use, I'm not sure if you can see those small letters there, but if you take a photo, you could probably zoom in then. But the idea is, if you have imagined the person's daily cycle, now you need to analyze each of those moments and simply understand how can you get in those moments. And the first one is using inner channels. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology in English, but the idea is for long-term campaigns, if you have your own social media, chat groups, physical space, member contacts, group representatives, firstly use every single informing place in your own campaign. That's the first one, the obvious one, of course, that you use your own social media. But some organizations, especially youth organizations, sometimes forget that. But or they get into other end where they're using only inner channels, that they're only using their own social media. They're always reaching the same person, the same activist, that nobody else is actually sharing their campaigns. So what you do then is you can look at 3 other different categories. They're public spaces. I'm not sure how that is in your countries, but in Latvia, there are so many Facebook groups where you can just simply share your ideas to people and just have posters there. There are loads of open communities in Discord, in some chat groups. There are online forums, there are listing websites where you can list for some sort of activities. There are informational boards, physical ones, and also online ones. But simply, these are spaces where you can advertise for free. They will probably reach 1 or 2 people. But that if you do it on quantity side, if you, for example, post in like 200 social media groups, if each post gets 1 person, in total, that's 200 highly engaged people. Then you can also focus on interest groups, where you can look at roof organizations for a representation, some people who represent some countries, financiers who are in charge of projects, political parties, and so on. These are people who represent a large scale of group. They typically have some authority in those groups. So if you can get those authorities to advertise your campaign in their own social media, in their inner channels, or send out the information to their for members, that's always a new way to reach the same person who's, for example, in the previous slide, John. And then there are private spaces. These are specific company Facebook pages, websites, some state institutions, news portals, web pages, TV, radio, newspapers. And these are the places where you typically need to send out an email, ask, can you publish this? And most of the time, if you get enough people to publish something, most other large corporations will post it as well. For example, in the campaign across Latvia, what we did is we asked all of the local newspapers, which is like 400, to share our story. Around 50 of them did that. And then what happened next is the largest newspapers in Latvia looked at all of the, oh, hey, all of these small newspapers are publishing this. So they're, okay, this is also good enough for us. We will publish this as well. So if you can get enough people to share something, and people will share something if it sounds good enough, at least, and you'll get large players to do that as well. And the long term is, if you post in these places, typically you post it once and that's it. However, if you need to also focus on the long term, depends on the campaign you're trying to achieve or the mission you're trying to achieve, but you need to try to understand what are the beneficial partnerships. In most cases, that could be a newspaper or some TV or radio station. Those could be the best because they have constant flow of people who are listening or reading their information. But the other part is if you can somehow get a community going on, I don't know, that could be a Facebook group, a WhatsApp group, a Discord channel, Slack channel. If you can get a community around your campaign, those are going to be people who truly believe your mission. They're going to make content for you. They're going to freely share your information. And that's quite literally the best marketing you'll ever have. If you can get all of those previous short-term posts to get all of those people in your community, nothing will work better than that. However, overall, I just want to have a final point on this before we focus on discussion, perhaps, is whenever you think about marketing, as you just need to follow 4 simple steps. At least that's what I do for most of the international cooperations is, first one is, why would the person look at the campaign? Why does it give it attention? One way to make people look at your campaign is using the last tactic, is just reach the person over and over and over again, and finally they will at least look at the campaign once, perhaps read it, and that would be awesome for you. Second is, why would they forward it to others? Most people typically focus on the first one. Why would they look at it? But your goal should be not only at the person's attention to this one single post, but your focus should be more on the why should the person share it forward? Because if a person, for example, I would just keep talking about the Facebook example. If a person shares your post, that instantly reaches at least 50 more people, and they will see that their friends shared it, not some organic random post from an organization. And therefore it's also higher authority, so people are more likely to actually read what was posted there. So the second should be, why would they forward it to others? The third is, why would they spend their time reading or just looking at your campaign? Because they have hundreds of other things to do. They can easily scroll on social media. They can easily do anything else except read your campaign information. So why would they give you more time? And in that way, you should always focus on something emotional. For example, this is the example I wrote down. Which will not be found anymore. Yeah, can't find it anymore. But why would they want to give you time? You should always focus on, when you phrase the problem in the way that you will share it to other people. For example, you can phrase it, if we don't stop climate change, it's going to end the world. All right, that could be true. However, for most people who are not into that field, it's just not personal enough. They will not simply care. So you need to rephrase it so it's more personal for them. And the way you could do that is, for example, if I have to think on the spot, is if you keep throwing out plastic bottles, you're killing the birds. And that's going to just make them more emotional. If you can have somehow in the message involve an aspect of their life that they truly care about, it's either their family, their children, or their pets, but something they truly care about. If you always focus on the large things as an earth, as the whole population, it's not simply, you cannot simply take that into account, and it's not emotional enough for them. The last is reach the same person 7 different ways, is just because most of the time people will not simply read the first time or the second time or the fifth time. And that's, do you have any questions? This is the first time I presented this presentation in English, and I felt that. But yeah, do you perhaps have any specific questions on campaigns or how to reach people? And we could probably help you that in some sense.
I mean, it's very interesting. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Okay, it was very clear how to build up a general marketing campaign, but when it comes to fight climate change and how to get people excited about raising awareness for a better future, what typically would you do in this special case? Because I mean, to be honest, I think we are like quite of a niche stream so far. Most people in our world don't really care about climate change, but how do you get them activated? How can we maybe also get controversial discussions and then, yes, spread our word into a really diverse community?
All right, that's a pretty good question. I will let Laura answer that as well. But I think the first one is we are always in that bubble. Before I worked in a youth organization, and it's always whenever you post something online, the same active 5 people are sharing it, and it's nobody else, or just those 5 friends that you know, and nobody else is coming to you. So, how to get out of that bubble? That's a really good and horribly hard question to answer. The first and most, and I think the best solution is always try to find partners in every single, whenever you do something outreach, always try to find partners. And however, don't find only partners in that bubble. So for example, don't only find bubbles who are actively fighting the climate change. Find somebody new. Find somebody who's maybe working as a car manufacturer. So, and the reason is they just have vastly different target groups, so you'll finally reach somebody else. And the second is find somebody who's typically neutral as a TV show, as a radio. It's really hard to get there. However, if you get in that, for example, in national television, you will find people in almost every single target group. That's one. And then you have the way to convince them. But the first is you have to reach them. And when you finally reach them, then you have the second part is how do I convince them? So that's that's the hard part. But the way you do it is you have to, because fundamentally, if we don't stop climate change, it's quite literally going to end the world. So, and at least for humans, but they don't believe it. They have some other facts that they see as more important. So what you have to do is you have to put that information about the climate change and phrase it so they care about it. And that's the reason why I put emphasis on somehow in the message you're trying to give to people. Always try to find a way how can you involve their family in it. Last year, whenever I talked to politicians and I was talking about youth, I always mentioned their children. And that really works. That's like the best solution you can have. Just always find a way how you can actually get to them through something they actually care about. And that's, if you can somehow find a good solution to both of these problems, it's magnificent. And always they will always have this barrier that they will not believe you, and that barrier is going to stop at one moment. But you have to remember, if all of us share our Facebook feeds, we are all in some specific bubble, and they're always probably, for example, if they're against climate change, they're always getting the information against climate change, and they're getting some sort of facts, and it's always like, all right, this is like obviously, why would I believe this? So you also have to be quite subtle, quite simple about it. So in a way that you have to understand that they have facts that they trust that are against your facts. So you have to take that into consideration. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah. Maybe we can continue already. You gave an interesting example with the car manufacturer. So if I partner with a car manufacturing company, I would be afraid to lose trust and loyalty in my bubble when they see, oh, is he doing greenwashing for a commercial company or stuff like that? So would you rather than separate maybe your marketing campaign into one that is targeting your bubble, your ambassador bubble, and another second one which is really only targeting then the other group, the controversial group? So this might be very challenging as well, isn't it?
just keeping asking, you just keep asking harder and harder questions. But I think recently I saw some campaigns analytics on one USA company that sells beers, and they were trying out a new strategy that they will try to reach more feminists, like females, and the way they advertised was kind of against their main audience. So what happened is most of their base community was like, oh wow, your target group is completely different from ours, we are leaving. And they're in that moment they were like, no, come back. So they switched. So what happened is their main audience, which was men at that moment, left, and the female audience that they were actually trying to reach, so, oh, you're like, wait, you just said that you're doing this, but now you're doing different. And they also left. So they lost both sides. And it was like, what? And they were like in the middle of, and I think they lost like 30% in their share price. Yeah, just awful marketing. However, I think that's really important at the beginning to state, to understand what's your target audience. And if your target audience is people who believe in climate change, then you shouldn't probably try to convert people who don't believe in climate change, because that's not your target audience. However, if at the beginning of the campaign you decide your target audience is people from 13 to 65, for example, then it includes everybody. And then your initial message is going to align as time goes on, because target audience is always the same. However, if there are people who like, oh wow, how can you like have, for example, some partnership with the car company, and I think the best solution in this case is just have clear communication with your main audience. For example, if you have the community, and that's the reason why I mentioned that it's a really good idea to have the community in one place, is that because you have most of the active fans in one place, and if you can convince all of the most active fans that this is a good idea, what's going to happen is they're going to go to all of these posts and they're going to defend you. And that's what you want to have. So to summarize it up, is if you want to reach people who are not for climate change, you want to have that in stone from the beginning. Second is, when you do have cooperations with, for example, car companies, you want to be quite clear about it, why you're doing it, at least to your own community, share a post with them, convince your community, and then only focus on convincing some strangers on the internet, and because your community is going to help you convince others.
Thank you. I have a question about for instance, the youth. How do you reach out? Where do you find them? Especially in a society where we have more and more social media, and some of them are hidden, on Discord, in private rooms. So how do you reach out for those people? For instance, next year we will have the parliament election. So where do you find the youth to motivate them? Because when you start a campaign, it means that, but before starting your campaign, you have to find out where they're hiding. So where do you go? How do you do?
Can I answer this one before you? I can tell you the story about this also Finnish dam removal project. So they reach out not the youth, but the kids. I can tell you about the kids. So they just took the Finnish famous influencer actor, and they took his took him as a character in a comic book. So they asked Donald Duck, drawing like the author, so can he draw a comic with this character as this actor? And so in this comic, this actor was fighting this businessman who wanted to keep this dam. So I think it's all about the channels and reaching, and you can just reach kids, for example, in their own way. For example, with these comics, and these kids read this comic and tell them about and tell to them parents about these comics, so they can start a conversation. So I think, I don't know, it's just for me.
Yeah, and I can also expand on this as whenever you're trying to reach a certain target group, as you have places, for example, influencers that can reach a vast majority of people. However, you should not only look at the simple statistic, how many people you can reach or who you're going to reach. You also need to, if you have time for that, you need to reach, understand how many people actually follow their content and actually believe what that person is saying. Because last year I was also partnering with one influencer in one campaign, and the way it happened is we had this one day conference which was in public in some park, and we had like 10 different discussions. And as in one discussion we had like one of Latvia's largest influencers with, and everybody was loving, and that influencer posted that I will be attending this conference, come and take a look. What happened is he had the discussion like from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Until 2 p.m. we had nobody. Then 2 p.m. started, his discussion came up, everybody suddenly showed up, he went away, everybody else went away, but the conference is still going on. So we realized that, all right, we can reach a lot of people through this influencer, but they are not willing to digest any other content. So you always need to also understand how trustworthy do the followers actually think this thing is, and that's one. And how to actually reach people. Youngsters is their average youth, I think, spends around 5 to 7 hours on social media just scrolling. And what that means is they're just switching content every 3 to 5 seconds. And if you show up there and you're going to be one of maybe 5,000 things they see that day, is you can either focus on two things. You can focus on the quality, and that's typically going to be the video format. It needs to it kind of needs to feel cheap. It doesn't need, because professional content actually performs sometimes worse than like easily made content with your iPhone, because that's what youngsters actually follow more. That's one thing. But other thing is you just need to ramp up the numbers. You need to be in front of that youngsters' eyes more, and that's why I mentioned before. You just need to publish your story in every single place you can. Like, I can publish there for free, I will send it there for free. And yeah, but if you want to have people who work on a campaign before it even starts, it's probably going to be the easiest to actually just get the active ones who are in most organizations and just invite them, and with their help try to reach more people who are not part of organizations. But yeah, I would focus on two parts: the quality and the quantity. Yeah. And do we have any questions on Zoom? Oh.
Don't worry. Is there a specific content you have experience with which is working very good? I mean, example, humor sometimes is working very well, or like in the new youth medias, reels is like the holy shit. So do you have experience from your side?
Yeah, well, I think one of the best, who here knows Ryanair? They're the plane company. Yeah, check their Instagram account. It's and Twitter. It's the most non-serious thing I have ever seen, but they have like followers in millions. And the thing they do is they simply post meme content, just jokes, and that works, and they're reaching people. I think people are just looking for something more that for more companies that take them less seriously. That they're like, "Oh, we are just humans. We're just having fun. Here, have some fun with us." And I think video format jokes is right now the current trend. I would say, at least that's the way you can reach the most people. Yeah. All right, but I suppose if we don't have any other questions, we can end this session.